please spend the next 25 or so minutes dealing with that, and make sure that you can either open yourself up to being here at the table with folks, or you can find a way to tell us that it's not the right time to talk. But know that however you've come into this space, you are welcome. I invite you now to pay attention to our land acknowledgement. We gather today on the ancestral land of the Munsee Lenape tribe of the Lenni Lenape people. We acknowledge these people of the Stony Country and decry the unjust taking of their Lenape hoking. We acknowledge the unfulfilled promises of U.S. treaties granting land access and the still unresolved traumas of forced migration. We acknowledge and affirm Native values and indigenous cultures while holding space for the myriad authentic and post-colonial Native expressions of faith in life. And if you hear those words and are wondering how we can actually move from putting those words on the page into our actions, we have a Sacred Reckonings group who would love to talk with you if you would like to find out how to get involved in that action. And now to move us melodically into the rest of this service, Rebecca MacLean and Henco Espag, take it away.
No
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Henco. And now, folks, I invite you to turn around and look at that camera right there. There is an entire diaspora of Judsonites who are joining us, and I want you to wave hello to them. Hello, Judson diaspora. We feel you in this space. We feel you at table with us, and hopefully you've got some good eats and drinks where you are. But I have to admit, I thought today, with it being Labor Day weekend, that it was going to look like the rapture had happened and I had been left behind here. But I'm pretty impressed by how many folks are here today, so thank you for coming out, and thank you all there in Zoom land for being here, and thank you, Reverend William Stell, for holding the space. And now I invite you to settle even more deeply into the space with our call to worship. If you feel safe and you'd like to, go ahead and close your eyes and let these words wash over you. This is a prayer for lost causes. This is a sacred space, this humbling moment, so treat it like a sanctuary. Sense the cavernous emptiness, feel the largeness stretch over your head. Did you think you were above it all? This spot is way too big for you to never find a cranny or two packed full with your shadowy failings. Take in the view. Even stunning stained glass gets clouded with muck. Even inspiring art gets marked with filthy fingerprints. Don't let these facts negate how numinous you know you are. You are still the holder of your own holiness, no matter how dimmed and dusty. Care for your crumbling cloister. Cracks can be fixed once they are faced. Trust the truth that tending this temple is an everyday act, even when you ignore it. All awkwardnesses are actually opportunities to offer grace that will gussy up the place. Did you fear you were beyond repair? You've been built far sturdier than that. Wipe off the windows and wait. You are simply relearning how to let your own light in. Amen. And now if you'd please rise in body and or spirit, and let's join in singing Our God, Our Help in Ages Past.
Ancient testimony number 1, the Gospel according to Matthew 16:21-26 in RSV. Then Jesus told his disciples, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world but forfeit their life? Or what will they give in return for their life? Ancient testimony number 2, the Dhammada, verses 277 to 279. All conditioned phenomena are imperfect, and when one sees this insight, wisdom, one becomes weary of dukkha. This is the path to purity. All conditioned phenomena are dukkha, and when one sees this with insight, wisdom, one becomes weary of dukkha. This is the path to purity. All phenomena are without self. When one sees this with insight, wisdom, one becomes weary of dukkha. This is the path to purity. You may remain seated to sing the next song.
Those are the voices that I want abiding with me when I'm going through some shadowy times. You sound beautiful. It's so good to see all of you. Would you please pray with me? May I say what I need to say, and may you hear what you need to hear. Amen. So, we might be smack dab in the midst of a long holiday weekend, and we might be a smaller crowd than usual, although not as small as I thought it would be. And as many of us are desperately trying to wring out the last few drops of summer, it's actually a big day at Judson. Can you hear the hum of excitement? Since we tend to think of our program year here as running from September through June, today, September 3rd, is the first Agape Sunday of this season. When we're back at table, we've got drinks and eats to enjoy during the service, and hopefully you online folks have now gathered those eats and drinks that you want to nibble on so that we can stretch this sacred snack space all the way to your own homes. And we've got that official communion moment coming up in a few minutes, and I want to start us off today by putting a question on the table. Why do you come back to the table? Whether you're sitting at a physical table in this meeting room or whether you've imagined these tables connecting to you at home, why do you come back to the table? And I mean these physical agape tables, but I also basically mean all tables to which you continue to return. Why do you go back again and again? One of our most brilliant artist prophets, Nina Simone, is famous for saying, you've got to learn to leave the table when love's no longer being served. And with the word agape literally meaning love, when we gather at these tables here at this monthly agape feast, we certainly are trying to model a certain kind of serving love. But you all absorb the news, whether it's on paper or on a screen, at your fingertips, in your ears, or right in front of your face. You know that love is not being served at a whole lot of tables in this world. We even fail again and again, over and over and over here at Judson. We fail to actually serve the love that we say we want to serve, and we settle for something snarkier and a bit more cynical, something that's actually full of nothing but empty calories. So what's the actual nourishment that we are both called to offer and to receive at these tables? Last Sunday, our own Mark Gilman offered a call for us to embody humility and courage and love and action. And in his sermon, he reminded us that in a world where anti-Semitism has been so deeply embedded in Christian rhetoric and practice, it is not enough to say that we reject bigotry. It is not enough to say that we are not something. This rejection must then be recreated into a positive action that fills that violent void. And now, as we continue to watch our world crucify itself through all kinds of demeaning, deigning to the dominant narratives of empire, I want to stretch the table that Mark so beautifully set for us and ask you to focus right now not on what you don't want to be. And hopefully some of the things that you don't want to be include things like racist and white supremacist and homophobic and transphobic and misogynistic, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, xenophobic, ableist, ageist, colonialist. You get the picture? But as we name the things that we are hopefully trying not to be, who are we? What are we trying to be? And why do we come back to the table when so many exclusive tables are more interested in denying access and clinging to an unchanging sturdiness that was always a myth in the first place? Even as we prepare to celebrate Labor Day, we've got extravagantly wealthy entertainment executives allowing our talented writers and performers to stay on a prolonged strike instead of embodying what it takes to build an equitable table that actually affirms our artists. And before we get too proud of our disdain for the injustice, we all need to look in the mirror. Because capitalism has sunk its hooks so deeply into our ideas of creative consumption that we've willed ourselves to ignore how poorly we treat those who keep our imaginations ignited, let alone all the physical and emotional labor behind the scenes of all the cushy conveniences to which we've come to cling. And from here, the roots just tendril tortuously and connect to the continuing attacks on women's bodies and trans bodies, to O'Shea Sibley murdered in a parking lot, not only because he dared to be queer, but because he dared to be joyful and queer. To the Black lives of Angela Michelle Carr, Anolt Joseph Laguerre Jr., and Gerald Deshawn Gallion, murdered by a well-known, well-documented white supremacist. The crucifixions are all around us, and the reasons to not come back to the table abound. Which brings me to the cross that we are called to take up in this morning's first ancient testimony. This verse has been misused for millennia to convince marginalized people to return to a table at which love is no longer being offered. As Christianity shifted from being a ragtag revolutionary movement against the Roman Empire to actually becoming the officially embraced religion of empire, Jesus' radical statements were softened into mush and then reconstituted into sharp calls for those who are suffering to patiently accept their cross to bear. You see how convenient it is for a dominant empire to convince its underclasses to accept suffering as a God-given given, right? I mean, this is perfect crowd control. And it's for this reason that I've always had a problem with this passage. I mean, I wanted to not follow the lectionary this week. It's been used so violently for so long that it's easy to ignore what Jesus really means. And as with most misused Christian mantras, it took my encounters with scripture from another religion to actually deepen my relationship with the radical roots of this cross-bearing practice. And I am no expert on Buddhism. We can check out all that I'm about to say later on as well, but I've gained some education. And I want to take the revolutionary truth of today's second ancient testimony, which comes from the Dhammapada, the most famous collection of the Buddha's sayings. And I want us to focus on just one important word from this reading: dukkha. The closest English translation for dukkha is suffering. And the actual unpacking of this term would take many more sermons and much more time than we've got now, but the most important connection between this term and Jesus' call to cross-bearing lies in the etymology of the word dukkha. You see, dukkha is made up of two parts. The first being the prefix du, which basically means difficulty, and then the second being the suffix ka, which means empty. And there are three different kinds of dukkha in Buddhism, but the one most appropriate for our purposes here is sankhara dukkha, which translates to basically the unsatisfactoriness of changing and impermanent things, ideas, and conditions. Basically, according to the concept of sankhara dukkha, much of our suffering comes from clinging to things and ideas and conditions that are actually empty and were never designed to nourish us in the first place. But like classic human beings, we cling to those empty calories, and while we cling to the emptiness, the suffering, both of ourselves and of everyone else around us, grows. And I believe that when Jesus told his disciples to take up their cross, he was actually giving them a positive substitution for the sankhara dukkha, an alternative to the empty calories to which they thought they had to cling. In their ancient world, this emptiness was represented by the exploitation of workers, collaboration with empire violence, and tribal divisions that did the dominant empire's work for it. And now, in our not-so-ancient world, things aren't that much different. We just have more names for the emptiness. So why did Jesus call his offering for the disciples a cross to bear? Because Jesus knew that speaking out against empire emptiness and shaking the foundations and shifting the narrative and queering the expected empire assumption that we must divide and conquer gets you killed, often in body, but at least in spirit. In ancient times, that death often came as a cross. And in our times, we've refashioned the cross into countless other weapons, but the end result is the same. Dividing and conquering just gets us divided and conquered. And then we all end up empty, clinging to the emptiness and serving ourselves and everyone else freshly sautéed suffering. But there is an alternative. And as quoted on our bulletin cover, another of our most brilliant artist prophets, Audre Lorde, said, "In our world, divide and conquer must become, define, and empower." The dominant narrative of empire has tried to convince us all that constant division and conquering is the only answer. So in the face of empire's loud and constant no, our yes, the positive substitution must come from defining who we are individually and collectively and empowering ourselves to actually stand up for what we believe in and to reshape the wood of the cross into a table where love is served to all, especially those who bear the most violent brunt of this world's addiction to suffering. Last week, I heard something. I found out that there's an interesting concern that's getting lobbed Judson's way. And it's been stated that with me as senior minister, Judson might just be gay, gay, gay all the time. Now, first of all, that sounds like a great church to me. And when I first heard this, after my initial clutching of pearls, which I like to do, I could feel my body tense up in the way it used to when I knew that I was about to get bullied on the playground. It was such a familiar feeling, and for just a moment, it made me turn in on myself. It made me cling to whatever safety and acceptance I could find by just curling up and being quiet. I didn't know if love was being served at the table anymore. I didn't know what my place at the table might possibly be. And then along comes this imperative from Jesus in this week's lectionary. Jesus, the queerest of us all. And I realized that I have a cross to bear. And it's spelled with a Q, Q-R-O-S-S. And it's covered in glitter and grit. And in a world where Uganda just prosecuted their first victims of the American evangelical-inspired aggravated homosexuality law, in a country where trans people are being continually attacked with over 400 bills currently slithering through committee, when Canada is warning its citizens to check the anti-gay laws in U.S. states before Canadian citizens travel to the United States, in a world where the Christian communion table has represented violence and dismissal to so many LGBTQIA plus people, you better believe that I am going to take up my cross. And it's only going to get gayer from here. So buckle up and come back to the table. Empire wants us suffering. They want us empty, and empire wants us clinging. But I refuse to divide and conquer. I choose to define and empower, and I choose to define and empower you with all of you, because I once felt unwelcome at this table. I refuse to simply say that I'm not that kind of Christian anymore. I want to say that I am this kind of Christian now. Love is being served here. I know who I am. And I know the continual queering I need in order to become who I need to be. And I know who Judson is. And I know the continual queering that Judson needs in order to become the Judson that Judson needs to be. So why do you come back to this table? I want to know. It's a very real question. Who are you? And who do you want to be? Who is Judson and who does Judson want to be? How do we move from simply dividing ourselves from who we don't want to be and empower ourselves to define who we know we need to be? Isn't it horrifying to fathom how many people have felt turned away from tables like these? Millennia of people feeling turned away from tables like these. These tables are just empty pieces of furniture if we don't fill them with our continually queering and evolving answers. So I'm going to stop talking now. And I want you to start talking. We're going to take a few minutes to gather up some food and drink for our official communion moment. You are welcome to partake as you'd like. You are also welcome to not partake of the communion elements. But here, let's take communion with a lowercase c. You are communing with the people at this table with you, no matter what you've brought to the table. And I invite you to take up your crosses and tell one another why you've come to the table today. What did you come to offer, and what do you need today? Let's make sure love is being served even amongst the suffering, and that we are all empowered to taste it. I will gather us back up in just a moment, but I'll probably come around. I want to hear the answers too. What brought you to the table? Why have you come back to the table today? And make sure that you're getting some food and drink if you need it too while you're talking. Go for it. All right. I like to hear that conversation continue to bubble and for it to take a few minutes for me to actually call us back together. If you would like to partake in this formal communion moment, just make sure you've got something to eat in your hand and you've got a little bit to drink in front of you. All of you in the Judson online diaspora, hope you have what you need as well. I'm not going to do that. On the night that we remember, Jesus was sitting in a room at table with all of his friends. And he looked around at all of them and he said something like, "Take this bread and eat of it. This bread represents my body, which will soon be broken for you. And as we eat it together today, may we remember all bodies that continue to be broken by this world's continuing addiction to suffering and causing suffering." Let's eat together. And in the same way, Jesus lifted up a cup, and he might have said, "This might look like some normal cup, but this is a cup of empowerment. Whenever you drink from it, remember the ways we are queering ourselves today. And remember the imperative that I give you, that after I am gone, you will love one another as I have loved you." Let's drink together. And here at Judson, we also like to believe that maybe those disciples were some show queens and like to sing together. So let's sing together a beloved song from this congregation written by our own Lee Gilliott and feel her spirit and love fill this space as we sing.
standing in the way of you hearing a very nice Ginny Selig song. And so there's a reason Micah asked me to. I'm Thomas. My pronouns are he and him. Micah has asked for there to be a different way to bring us into the offertory. And so that's what I'm going to do. And I've also done it after one slug of communion wine. So this is going to be great. It's interesting that Micah asked me to do this week. Helena and I, Helena is at home doing all kinds of work because we're kind of overhauling our entire apartment right now. We can tell you the reasons later, but just like everything, we're getting rid of all kinds of stuff, going through books and files and just junk. And we uncovered from a few months ago a letter about our Judson pledge, which led us to realize that even though we had said online, after lovely phone calls from Keen and Craig, yes, we will definitely contribute to the Judson pledge, that we hadn't been contributing to the Judson pledge for several months. And it was embarrassing, and I called Craig and I apologized, and I tried to get hold of you, Keen, and you don't answer your phone. And we've trued it up this week. But it's interesting what Micah said about what do you have to offer. I grabbed folks, since I'm the treasurer of our board, and I am a strange choice for a treasurer. I graduated with a degree in English literature. I am not qualified for this. I gather folks to help me get money from y'all on Sunday. And the offering is lovely, and it's great, and we appreciate every single bit of it, and if you can give us some more of it, that'd be really nice. But it's easy to look at this offering as kind of the rotisserie chicken participation of being a part of church. You said it, and you forget it, and then you let it go. When you said it, don't forget it. Make sure that you follow through. Ask if there is anything else that you can also do to help out with this church. Ask if there's other ways for you to participate. I'm probably going off the script of offertory, but you said whatever you have to offer, and y'all have a lot to offer this church that has a lot of work that needs to get done. So I'm going to send around a basket. Lisa's going to help me. I'm going to be over here. Lisa's going to be over there. And we're doing this with 2 baskets lately. I would like to get it where we can get back to 4 baskets. Just a suggestion. But thanks a lot, y'all. Offertory, Jeannie, come and save us all from me.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so. Hi, folks. What I hoarded, piled around, my heart in towers, funeral rounds of nouns, those people, places, things that drown me as they slide to ground. But here's what I'd like to feel safer, and here's what I'm not here to suffer. Then I heard I choose joy, and it sounded so true. I don't choose nouns, I choose you. Where I lived, a burial ground, a lost and found, a hoarded town of nouns. All people, places, things that foundered as my bridge burned down. I had clowned around unfound, collecting things I'd battened down, those nouns. False people, places, useless things I thought were hallowed ground. But here's what I'd like to feel safer. And here's what I'm not here to suffer. And I heard I choose joy, and it sounded so true. I don't choose nouns, I choose you. My ship of things I ran aground burned down around me with a sound like nouns, as all were ground to ash, for they were little more than flash. So slip the knot, so untie from the thought, disconnect from the wreck of those nouns circling round. Here's what I'd like to feel safer. Here's what I'm not here to suffer. I heard I choose joy, and it turns out it's true. I don't choose nouns, I choose. I don't choose nouns, I choose. I don't choose nouns, I choose you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Now would you all please rise in body and or spirit? When I come to an agape service, I think of these tables as also imagination machines, where we are practicing what we wish we could see out in the world. And so sometimes we sing songs that are not necessarily how we might be actually feeling, but are maybe illustrating how we hope to soon feel. So if you're feeling like you can get behind the lyrics of this coming song and you can see clearly now, amazing. If you don't quite feel like you're there right now, I want to hear you sing too. And maybe with these imagination machines we're standing at, we can figure it out together. This service is ending, but our service in the world continues. I'll meet you out there where hopefully we can see clearly together. Amen. Thank you so much, Henco, for leading us through those songs so beautifully. And now is the moment in our service where we turn back around to that camera right there, wave goodbye to the Judson online diaspora and to Reverend William Stell. We send you good energy as you share in your own celebrations and concerns and announcements. We feel you in this space. And this is the moment where you are invited to share celebrations, concerns, announcements as we open up this very podium. Remember to have the microphone right in front of your face or